I am not a person. I am only a scrap of paper torn from an old book of poetry. Under someone's fingernail, I left the book's spine with a cruel serrated tear, like a verdict. Two brief words are printed on me. Tamán Shud. The end. That night, Adelaide was damp and cold. The Somerton sea wind passed through wool, through the vest, through flesh that had stopped arguing with time. The man leaned against the seawall, his shoes still polished, his tie still straight, the labels on his clothing trimmed away as if by a ritual of erasing a name. I, curled inside the small breast pocket, heard his final heartbeat, short and singular. When the sun rose, a zinc-colored dawn, they found him first, and then me. And so the investigation began, with an inanimate scrap of paper becoming the ancient whisper of fate. The end, but not for the story. You've heard the paper whisper. Now follow the gleam of polished shoes backwards to the night before sunrise. You're listening to Somerton Man, the Tamán Shud mystery, the case where every road leads to a worn copy of the Rubaiyat and a man without a name. A quiet death, yet its echo carries across generations of detectives, toxicologists, code breakers, and souls who harbor an unclosed question. In the noir world, we trust the shadows more than the light. There, every small object, buttons, a left luggage ticket, a needle, a thread, has its own story. In this episode, we'll let objects lead the way. Shud's scrap recounts the instant it was torn from the book. The suitcase at the station whispers about a journey of snipped labels and erased traces. The Rubaiyat quietly reveals a missing final page, a telephone number, and a string of letters like the ragged breathing of the post-war era. And at each bend in the road, we'll hear another voice. Adelaide, a city practiced in freezing secrets into the seams of sea wind, the forensic pathologist who measures time by pale marks, the narrator, you and I, the ones who refuse to let the words "the end" actually end. When poetry calls a name, forensics will measure its voice. Adelaide, a dim morning, Somerton Beach. He is seen leaning against the seawall as if asleep. A neat vest, pressed trousers, polished shoes, a properly knotted tie. No hat, an oddity in an age when a man's hat was part of his honor. No identification in the pockets, every label cut away. Forensics opens another voice, the body. The liver slightly altered, the spleen showing unusual signs, the stomach holding faint traces hard to name. No wounds, no foreign objects, no outward violence. A death as if someone had deleted the file instead of smashing the machine. Some say poison. Others, a poetic suicide by an admirer of Khayyam. Still others whisper spycraft, a half-shadowed era when secrets changed hands with a wink more often than a signature. Then, from inside his coat, I, the small scrap of paper, am found. Tamán Shud, two words like an exclamation point written in dry ink. That is the moment when poetry collides with the decoder. If a man cuts his name from his clothing, there was a time when he had a name. And sometimes a name hides inside a suitcase. At the parcels office, an employee discovers a suitcase left from the day before, brown, discreet, waiting for an owner who never arrives. Inside, tidy clothes, shaving gear, sewing tools, items belonging to a man who knows order. The trouble is, labels are cut as they were from the clothes on his body. One or two items carry stray initials, the shadow of a name, but not enough to assemble a map. There is rare thread, there are firm needles. Something suggests the owner is meticulous, more skilled with a needle than most. In noir, that skill means two things. He looks after himself, or someone taught him to look after himself that way. Try this imagining. The night before dawn, the man stops at the station, checks the suitcase, repairs a seam on his coat, snips the labels as if cutting the road home, and then walks toward the sea like someone keeping an appointment with the wind. A suitcase speaks of journeys. A book will speak of purpose. Not long after, a copy of Omar Khayyam's Rubaiyat, Fitzgerald's translation, appears as if it found the investigation on its own. Someone discovers the last page torn out. The serrated tear at the spine matches my torn edge. We have a case connected by paper, like two halves of a spell. On that book, investigators find a telephone number and a string of letters resembling a code. Lines broken apart like shattered breaths. They are not words, not sentences, more like the motion of a hand trying to recall something crucial, but left with only gesture. The phone number leads to a woman. Let's call her J. A name as light as a question. J says she does not know the man. But in noir, not knowing is sometimes another way of saying we met, and the meeting cannot be named. There is a child. There are stories of ear shape, teeth, and the folding lines of inheritance. But each time we think we touch an answer, the wind at Somerton shifts, dragging the secret back into the wet sand. When poetry turns into directions, we need science to keep balance. Listen to the voice of the pathologist. In a room as white as a page waiting for ink, the pathologist notes: no signs of violence, no injuries. The stomach with faint, indeterminate traces, the spleen enlarged. People speak of poisons, the kind that can kill yet leave no ordinary trace. But is every clean death the work of poison? Or the work of a clean plan? Picture this. A man chooses the month's end, chooses the beach, chooses layers of clothing like a rite. He snips the labels as if cutting bridges to a life already gone. He carries a phrase, Tamán Shud, to slip into the left breast pocket like placing a token on the final card. The pathologist reads the body as if it were another book. Calluses on the hand, tailor's stitches on the trouser hem, skin at the wrist. Such details might say he once worked with his hands. They might also say he simply mended his clothes. Noir doesn't hate ambiguity. Noir lives on it. But noir also loves clues, and clues love codes. The lines on the back of the Rubaiyat feel like encryption. Point 6. Letters standing alone, grouped, sometimes repeating like quickened breath. A string that could be an acronym, or the cadence of something one cannot dare to speak aloud. Let's lay out some hypotheses. If it is a simple cipher, it needs a key. The key could be a quatrain in the Rubaiyat. If it is a notational diary, each letter is a memory post, a bus stop, a hotel, an hour. If it is the residue of fear, it is not a code at all, but a neurological habit, a handwriting so it does not shake. Among all possibilities, one thing is sure: a code is the voice of silence. The man spoke to himself in letters, as if the outer world were too unsafe for syllables. The code leads us to the person. And if the person has no name, we borrow the city to call him. I am Adelaide, where the sea wind knows how to keep a secret longer than salt keeps its scent. Here, people saw each other through a hat's brim, a pressed crease, the small customs that built a solemn post-war time. A man came, checked a suitcase, walked to the beach, sat down, chose a courteous ending. But don't mistake me for indifferent. Each winter night, I still hear the footfalls in the sand of someone returning to look for an answer. They say my name when they mention the mystery, as if here alone, silence can glow. It's time to return to the paper scrap, the one who opened the show, to hear a final confession. I am Tamán Shud. They thought I was a period. In truth, I am a comma between two stories. The story of a man who chose to leave his name behind, and the story of a city that could not bear to leave a man behind. I was torn out by a decision. The decision that beautiful words sometimes suit closure better than beginnings. But I am also a clue, pointing to the book, to the letters, to J. I am the whisper that this death may have been chosen, or chosen for him. If you ask me, who was the man? I will say, I know how he wished to be remembered, by tidiness. He left order inside an ending, the way one cleansed the house before a long journey. From a single scrap, we now hold a map. It's time to place the points upon it and connect them into a route. Point 8. 1. The missing hat. In those days, going out bareheaded was like forgetting a button. Noir hypothesis, a deliberate difference to be recognizable to someone at a rendezvous. 2. Clean clothes and polished shoes, not suited to a long walk along the sand. Noir hypothesis, he traveled by car or was brought there. 3. Cut labels. Erases the trail of shop, tailor, origin. Noir hypothesis, a will to self-erase, or other hands did the trimming. 4. The suitcase at the station. Builds the story of a man tidying away identity in layers, carrying sewing tools, knowing how to mend himself. 5. The rubaiyat and the letters. Provide the gateway to human connections, a phone number, memories, a verse. Lay these 5 points on the table, and we get 2 main roads. The self-chosen road, a man closing the door on his life with a tidy performance, leaving the words "the end" as a polite request. The imposed road, a man led into silence. The cut labels, someone else's work. The paper scrap in his pocket, a seal. And perhaps the truth lies between them, a co-authorship between personal will and the hand of an age full of secrets. When you're unsure of the path, listen to the footfall. That rhythm leads to the final rendezvous. The beach is where the sleepless meet, the tide and the insomniac. Here, an ending looks natural. Sit down, lean back, close your eyes. But Noir tells us to study the feet first. Clean shoes, dry cuffs, no signs of struggle, a strangely peaceful face. Did someone come after him? The sea answers with its pull. Did someone tell him a final line? The wind answers with a sweep. Only the scrap whispers? Yes. Someone left 2 words in place of a goodbye. Farewell is one face. The other face is remembering. Science will try to speak a name. Decades later, science reach anthropology, DNA, and the cross-checking of archival records. At times, a name is proposed. At times, disputes flare, because files are not always as flat as printed paper. In Noir, what matters is not only who, but how we say the name. If a name returns, speak it kindly. If the name remains contested, let it rest until the evidence has ripened. One certainty remains. However far technology travels, those 2 words still stand, Tamán, Shud, reminding us that an ending is only a formality if the story is told well. 1.2. The story has traced a circle, from paper to man, from man back to paper. Now we close it as Noir does, with amber light and a small promise. You've just heard the tale of a man who carried no name, and a city that would not release the question. From the scrap, we traced the book. From the book, we touched the letters. From the letters, we faced the man. From the man, we return to the scrap, a circle Noir calls fate. If you find yourself at a late bus depot, an empty station, or only a room lit by a lonely amber lamp, remember, some endings are written to protect what cannot be said, and some people leave so that those who remain can learn to ask better questions. Tonight, as you close the rubaiyat you keep in your mind, you might tear away an invisible corner, not to give up, but to remember. Remember a name that will be or will return on the day the evidence ripens. I am the paper scrap. I have done my part, crossing a breast pocket to reach your ear. The rest belongs to storytellers, like you.